It's probably a miracle no one was seriously injured or killed here on Baldwin Street in South Dallas around midnight last night when this tank car and several other cars of a freight derailed, setting off a fire and an explosion. A number of people were evacuated from their homes along Baldwin Street. However, there were, as we say, no serious injuries. Several people were treated and released. One home at least was gutted by fire. A number of others were badly damaged. One of those rudely awakened when the explosion went off was Mr. M.T. Rhodes.
Well, I was asleep, and the next thing I knew, I was flying across the room against the wall. Then I just got up and tried to find the first place out of the house.
What did you think had happened?
Well, I didn't know. Then I woke up and I could see all the fire. Then I looked over and saw those cars, and I figured that something had exploded, so I just took off.
Deputy Fire Chief Charles Haas talked about an explosion warning.
Well, it's people in the immediate area here be moved back for their own safety.
Now, when we say in the immediate area, how far would that be?
Oh, 1,500 to 2,000 feet.
What would that be in terms of blocks?
Oh, probably a couple of blocks.
Did the spokesman for the Bureau of Mines give you any fear of imminent danger?
No, but we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
There were 34,800 gallons of liquid ethylene aboard the tank car when it derailed and exploded at midnight last night. The tank car itself did not explode, but rather an accumulation of fumes from a crack in its side. It is that crack that firemen poured water on throughout the day as the liquid ethylene escaped. Firemen also feared a secondary explosion, saying that once the liquid ethylene had been consumed, the fumes inside the tank car could have exploded, causing debris to fall for miles around. It was at mid-morning when they abandoned their fire hoses and got back to a safe distance in that eventuality. However, it never occurred.
If sweat, sunburn, and tired muscles are any measure of achievement, these 35 firemen have certainly earned their certificates as emergency medical technicians. For the past month, they've been receiving intensive training, both in-field and in the classroom. They've learned extrication techniques, how to remove trapped victims from cave-ins, burning buildings, and also automobile wrecks. Involvement is in the name of the game. They've played the victims, lying in the bottom of holes, dangling from ropes, and cramped inside automobile wrecks. All exercises designed to make them qualified as ambulance rescuers. Martha McIntire, Channel 8 News on the Move.
You don't have to be the world's most astute political observer to predict a runoff election. But good grief, who expected this? It's probably safe to say that nobody expected to see a total of 64 people in a runoff election in Dallas County this spring. Of course, all those people won't appear on every ballot. It depends on exactly where you live as to how many names will be on your ballot. Democrats could go as high as 11 positions on the ballot. Republicans won't have any more than 3. On every ballot in the Democrat runoff will be races for U.S. Senator, where Ralph Yarborough faces Barefoot Sanders. For governor, the race that probably attracted the most attention statewide and in the county, pitting Sissy Farenthold against one-time legislator and banker rancher Dolph Briscoe. And for lieutenant governor, where Houston newspaper executive Bill Hobby has challenged State Senator Wayne Connally for the position. Republicans, on the other hand, have only one statewide race to contend with. That's the top spot, where State Senator Hank Grover is in the runoff against former National Committeeman Al Fay. The secret to this election, as in many elections, could turn out to be the absentee vote. And once again, Dallas County residents turned out with a healthy absentee vote. There is a school of thought that Briscoe and Mrs. Farenthold could cancel each other out in the Democrat runoff, and that the state could wind up with its first Republican governor since Reconstruction days. It's virtually hopeless to try to second-guess the voter, but one thing is sure. If you're planning to vote at the same place you voted in the primary election, you better check with party or county officials. Republicans, for example, have consolidated the 306 precincts into 160, and many of the polling places have been changed. Democrat consolidation hasn't been so extensive, but there has been some. So if you don't know for sure where you're supposed to vote Saturday, better check. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News, on the move.
Before entering the grand jury room this morning, Attorney Edwin Phillips said he was deputized as an assistant DA by District Attorney Doug Crouch. The action was taken to remove any legal questions concerning his authority to assist the grand jury. One of 6 witnesses to testify today was former chief prosecutor for the DA's office, John Brady. Brady left the DA's office several months ago to enter private practice. Another witness was scheduled to appear before the grand jury at 10 o'clock this morning, but he didn't show until almost noon. He is 20-year-old Keith Neely. The young man's mother told me that her son had been threatened by a telephone call. She said an unknown person told her son to keep his mouth shut. Meanwhile, District Attorney Crouch says he welcomes the investigation of his office and that contrary to reports, members of his staff will not be kept from the grand jury room during the investigation. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
The way it's supposed to be, and because like some days I'll be on, some days I'll be off, so I don't think my timing is really correct the way I think it should be.
Have you always been a power hitter from the first time you picked up a baseball bat?
Well, I always had a few home runs and things, you know, but not really. I haven't thought about hitting really a lot of home runs or anything like that, you know, but it's like they say, if you hit them right and everything's go right for you, they go out.
How do you feel things have been going for the Rangers lately?
Well, I think later on, I think we've gone pretty good so far, the young ball club. I think like as the season goes along, it'll be a lot better.
Have you set any goals for yourself this season? Number of home runs, for example, or RBIs?
No, I haven't. I just try to get as many as I can get.
Well, it's really hard to say, Jerry. I think that it does probably have something to tell us about the state of basketball today. There are many things happening in the game, as you know. We think that something has to happen vis-a-vis the merger or consolidation of the leagues, and I'm sure that the many pressures on Jack that resulted in this resignation all have some relationship to what might happen.
Well, I think my big moments were limited probably to my senior year. I played behind a fine player in Cliff Mealy. He's playing with the Houston Rockets right now. And, of course, Cliff was a year ahead of me, and I played more or less behind him for 2 years. Last year, however, I was able to play more, score more. I had a high game of 39 points against Iowa State in the Big 8 Conference, and I'd say that was my high point of my career.
How are you at rebounding?
Well, I averaged about 12 rebounds a game this year, and I'm not as heavy as a lot of other players, but I jump well enough to where I can make up for my lack of real board strength underneath.
Do you think the Tornado, if it went to England and played as a team, would have the same type of a record perhaps against, what, were you a first division player?
No, I'm a second division player. I think they might struggle in the second division. Top of the second division might find it hard. But the lower 4 of the second and top of the third, they give them a good game. I think they do well.
Have you had to make any adjustments as a player in the type of attack the Tornado uses compared to Fulham's attack in England?
Not really. There's a lot of skill in the side. Of course, it's much slower over here because of the heat, you know. but I've made a lot of adjustment because there's such a lot of skill in the side and they help you out.
And I expect you're looking forward to meeting the Cosmos tomorrow night, are you not?
Oh, terrific. Really looking forward to it. Great game. Hope we do well.
How long will you get to play for the Tornado before you must return to London?
It's a pity, really, because if we make the playoffs, John and myself will have to go home, which will be a blow to us because we'd like to see it all the way through. But that's how it goes. We have to be back in London for the start of the season with Fulham.
Last night, the undercover agent had set up a buy that was supposed to occur at Ephriham and Jacksboro in a parking lot. Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs had approximately 9 or 10 men in this area. We had 7 people from our department in the general area where the buy in order to protect the undercover men. The 3 persons were arrested on the Buddy's parking lot at Ephriham and Jacksboro.
And what did you confiscate there?
Approximately a little over a pound of heroin.
How much is that worth on the open market or underground
street prices, depending on the strength of it, I would say between $75,000 and $100,000.
In a suitcase, in a boot, in a man's boot, he found a marijuana seed. A marijuana seed is pretty small. But he did find a seed in the boot, which meant that this man had to have been dealing in marijuana or had been in a marijuana field. He found nothing else in the suitcases. So he invited the man to the search room. When he reached the search room door, preceding the man pulled something out of his shirt pocket and dropped it behind the door. He didn't know that I was standing right behind him. It was 2 packages of marijuana.
Ford Motor Company is recalling all their Ford Torinos twice. The first time Ford recalls the cars, they install a retainer plate on the rear axle. This helps to hold the axle in place, and when the axle begins to give, it makes enough noise to warn the motorist that he must get his car to a garage before the axle falls off. During the second recall, the whole axle is replaced with a heavier one. I talked to Jim Page of Ford about why this was necessary. Why is this axle having to be changed? What's happened?
Well, we're putting in a heavier axle and a heavier bearing to eliminate this problem.
The problem of?
The contamination and the bearing failure.
And if you have a bearing failure, what happens?
If you have a bearing failure, of course, as I say, you would have a loud noise and some vibration in the vehicle, and hopefully the customer will stop. If the customer didn't stop, the axle would start to come out of the vehicle.
And you have an accident, I guess.
Well, it could happen, yes.
When I asked Mr. Page how Ford happened to miss the defect when they test drove the Torino, he said that they can't be expected to duplicate in road tests every condition that will come up when the motorist is actually driving the car. This means you are now the test drivers for your own car. Time magazine stated that in 16 cases, rear axles and wheels came off these new cars. Mr. Page told me that there have been 4 cases in the Dallas area. I was also told the axles will be ready to install in the cars by August, if not before.
The Canton Fair is no place for a small buyer because the Chinese have a preconceived idea of what a shipping case consists of, and you have to fill the shipping case in order to be able to buy anything. After they set minimum quantities by style, they then total them up and say not enough to fill the shipping case. So I think that's a very interesting technique that I'm going to suggest that retailers try on their customers.
charged with being imprisoned not less than 1 year nor more than 5, or be both.
And knowingly is the word, and knowingly again is the word.
Well before the first primary, but he didn't bring any mention of it up until after he got in the runoff with me.
Weak in this respect. I have already released, it was months ago, to the Capitol Press Bureau in Austin, a list of my holdings. I have pledged that if
The park in question was located near Elm Street, just east of the central business district, and its trees provided an oasis in a desert of concrete. Possibly because they didn't know where to look, most people drove by the park without even knowing it was there. But it was there, and for those youngsters who could find it, the park also had become a playground. But now there's a controversy over the future of the park because of a highway through the area. And today, supporters of the park called in government officials to debate the issue.
And this deals with the public's right to know. And I think that if the Supreme Court doesn't include us in this, that is going to be inhibited. The other effect will be that the government will be released to pursue its attempt to get our financial records of contributions and copies of all the checks we've written. And we then will be free, though, to focus on what I think are the central issues in this matter: religious freedom and freedom of the press and freedom of association. So it will free the government to come after our records, but it will also free us to raise the core issues for the first time in court in this whole matter.
You do it like this, and then you jump to this one, and then this one, and that one. Then you come back this way, this way, this way. Only one foot below.
Somebody had to figure out how far it had to be from that rail over there, and somebody had to figure out what that
Now, we have an open mind. There's a possibility that you have a plan here. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it at all. It looks like you've just gone ahead and blunderbusted this far. And when we talked to Mr. Keller about this the other day, he asked if we should stop the production on this thing now. Just stop it right there. I said, no, you aren't going to build that much more in the next 2 weeks. There won't be that much more to tear down. But why don't you relieve our minds of explaining if there is a plan? Are you going to open this every afternoon for the children to come up here and play hopscotch?
The park's going to be underneath.
Well, if you take yourself to the picnic tables, of course, you can have tables out of all these trees. Trees and tables go together. Trash cans, of course.
The debate over what to do about this park continued for about a quarter of an hour, with nothing much being decided, except that the Bonehead Club of Dallas will now have to come up with a new project for having fun. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.